making $250,000 a year.
Wow.
In contracting.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, let's go buy an 8-ball. Now we're going to work to do cocaine.
Mike Bouvier grew up in the northern community of Crosse, Saskatchewan. Despite being involved in sports and trying to avoid the dysfunction and violence in his community, the hockey drinking culture got him. Then he found marijuana, cocaine, and finally crack.
Now that first high of the crack was the beginning of my demise in my life. So now the addiction was full blown.
Mike lost everything as a result of his crack cocaine addiction and alcoholism. Finally, he found himself trying to end it all.
Ready at my dad's cabin on the porch there. I got the cord, the chair, and made up my mind, I'm going to do it.
After a failed attempt, Mike finally realized the pain he was putting his family through, and he saw it in their eyes. That's when he ended up in MACSI Treatment Center in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan.
Mike, she said, I want you to do something. She said, so she goes, get a paper and pen and write down everything that you want to say to all the people you hurt, including your daughter. An hour later, I was asking her for more paper.
In this episode, Mike talked to me about growing up in Northern Saskatchewan, how and why his alcoholism and crack cocaine addiction started, and how his native spirituality helps him find the peace he has today. But before we get into it, what's up? My name's Dan, podcaster, keynote speaker, and advocate, and this is Hard Knocks Talks, your addictions podcast. Now, let's get into my talk with Mike Bouvier.
This is Hard Knocks Talks.
What's up, Mike?
Hey, well, first of all, Dan, thank you so much for having me on your show. Wasn't sure what was expected or to expect, but I got a call this morning from Brandon asking me, there's this guy from Hard Knocks Talks. He asked me if you'd be interested in doing a show, and I hesitated for a second. I said, you know what, why not? I said, I've never got to, nobody's ever asked me about my story before, and what better way to debut on a live show.
Yeah, it's interesting to me how recovery can do that. Like, it opens up doors that are just you didn't even think of. Like, you didn't wake up this morning expecting to come on a podcast and share your story,
No.
And it's funny how life can just, you keep doing the next right thing and doors just keep opening. Would you agree?
I totally 100% agree with that. In the past, that 30-year block of in addiction prevented me or didn't allow me to do the things that I'm doing today now in terms of confidence and wise and stuff like that. It's been a really good journey. There's a lot of ups and downs with that, but mostly ups. It's all good.
Yeah.
For me, anyways, like you know how to handle them, like when there are some downers and stuff.
And it's funny. It's that we need to learn how to experience pain, to experience uncertainty. And like, let me tell you, if what had happened this evening with all of the tech challenges that I faced with the camera and then with the audio and then with having to reboot the computers a year ago, I would have been losing my mind. And I'm 7.5 years in. Like, this isn't like I'm not new to recovery. So, but it's learning to feel it, but understand that it's going to be okay. Like, if the show wouldn't have worked out tonight, like, tomorrow's another day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's that positive outlook all the time of having that.
So, but anyways, is there, why don't you tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up for you in Crosse?
Growing up, I could say there was a lot of childhood trauma, I guess, in terms of, growing up in a community where alcohol was just, the normal thing to see every day. Violence was this was in the 70s. I'm talking about, about 74, 75, and 76, of course, 10 years old. 10 years old was my very first time I had a drink of alcohol. So it was 10 years old. Me and my friend of mine snuck into a dance. His brother got married, and we stole some baby duck.
Baby duck. Oh, no. I'm sorry that was your first experience.
Oh, well, I don't remember the night anyway. I got carried home from what I was told. So. But yeah, growing up in Crosse in the 70s, like there was a lot of a lot of violence, a lot of alcohol, and back then when you talk about gangs, there was gangs back there, but it was more territorial. People that just where they lived, you don't belong there, so you don't go there. But if you do, you paid the price. There was like 4 or 5 territories back in our community. There was Snob Hill, there was Lower Snob, there was Ant Hill, there was Chinatown,
Really?
Bouvier. So, anyways, but yeah, growing up in that era of my time, it was fairly traumatic. There was a lot of schoolyard beatings. I was bullied in school. I After school, in my younger days, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, so it was my safe haven. It was like on the southern part of Crosse. There, that's why I can speak the language, because they didn't know English. So I had to learn Cree.
So
So
it sounds to me like you did grow up a lot around violence and around a lot of alcohol, but you also had some stability in your life through your grandparents. Now, when you were experiencing and witnessing all of these things and the violence and the alcohol, did you think that that was normal at the time?
it was, I guess I can say I grew into that, because it was normal to see everybody drunk and see everybody fighting. And at every dance, every Friday, there was a dance, Friday and Saturday, and guaranteed there would be a lot of violence out there and fights and stuff. And my dad was part of the residential schools. My mom, they all grew out of that, or were part of that. My dad in Crosse, and my mom in Beauval, La Plonge. She was part of the residential school system there. But
Did you experience any of the fallout from that? I mean, being born in the 60s, I mean, there's when the 60s scoop happened.
I never really heard about 60 scoop actually until when compensation came around. But I wasn't part of that. No.
So when did the drinking start to become more of a problem in your life?
Boy, as I grew older and became, the 12 to 13-year-old, the 14-year-old, and I got to play with people older than me. And as I turned 15, and as I played and got to go to these tournaments, and the older people, they drank. So like that was the normal thing. So after, you win or lose in the final, you're still going to drink.
Yeah.
So I started drinking regularly about 15, 16-year-olds. Now, every time we won something, I drank.
Well, every time you lose something, you drank too, I bet.
Well, yeah, sometimes,
Yeah.
most of the, sometimes, but we hardly ever lost, I could say.
Yeah.
When you're part of winning teams, and, you drank. So every weekend we drank, because it was a normal thing to do. And I left La Crosse in 86. I was 20 years old. I left La Crosse, and I went to school in a community called Esterhazy. Probably most people know where that is. It's my son Brandon, who's the oldest of my kids. He was only 1 year old then. That was my first opportunity, like, to be alone with my girlfriend at the time, with my longtime partner at the time, the mother of my children. And it was nothing but drinking for us. We were alone. Now we had our own place. So, Thursday, Friday, Saturday was drinking days. And so now that went on for 14 months. But yeah, I came back in 87, summer of 87, back to La Crosse. I got a job right away in L'Orange. So those days again, L'Orange, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, drinking, get drunk.
And at no point during this time did you think that you were doing anything wrong?
No, because drinking was the thing. I looked forward to it. Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night. I always went home on weekends though, but then when I came home, I drank. Friday night, Saturday, then it was time to go home back to L'Orange to work, and I hung over. Those days were in 87, 88, and then, drinking, 88, 89. Drinking, 90s came around. Drinking was just a part of the culture now. Everything we did. But I can tell you something about one guy. I'd like to mention his name. He moved out of Crosse in 79. That's when we kind of flourished in terms of like going to the gym every night. His name was Steve Innes. He's a really good, wonderful guy. We grew up with Steve Innes as our coach, and he's the one that mentored us. And He took us to tournaments in the South as volleyball, the sport of volleyball. So he exposed us to the southern part of Saskatchewan where we didn't have to see, every weekend being at home.
Mm-hmm.
So every weekend in, November, December, January, for 3-4 months, Steve would take the time out of his own life and just to coach us because I think he saw something special. And, he kept us away from alcohol as we played, but, he couldn't keep it away from us when he wasn't around us. When we got home, the first thing we'd go and look for is our girlfriends, and then we'd go get drunk. I started working like from 87. When I got into the workforce and making my own money now, it was like, I can afford alcohol now at my expense, So we wouldn't just drink one night. We'd start Friday at 5. I wouldn't be done till Saturday midnight. I'd go around the clock and just drink, and then Sunday would be the day to taper off on it or have some more beer just to get the edge off. But Monday would always be, I'm too sick today, I call it sick. So pot now was a regular thing, smoking pot. That was my thing growing up as well. I smoked pot like I was a pothead. I'd go home and smoke a joint and wash up, change my clothes, go back to work. But that was it. It was, I would never mix weed and alcohol. It never agreed with me. So that was one thing I never did. So cocaine now became introduced. I heard about it because, earlier in my life in the mid-90s, I heard of a guy that was doing it. And you only heard about this in movies, right? And wow, what a rush, what a euphoria or whatever it was.
Before we get into that, and I want to talk about what your thought processes were around that, because certainly throughout your younger life, you'd heard like, don't do drugs, don't do cocaine, those people are bad, all of that stuff. But before we talk about that, and before we talk about like what finally brought you into recovery, let's take a quick break, and I'm going to read off tonight's sponsors. All right. Okay, this episode is funded in part by the SK-NEIHR Network and Mamawaikikiak Research, Training, and Mentorship Networks, which facilitates First Nations and Métis and First Nations health and well-being research, training, and knowledge mobilization throughout Saskatchewan. The SK-NEIHR is grounded in community and led by Métis, First Nations, and allied researchers in partnership with Saskatchewan's 3 universities and many community partners. SK-NEIHR is funded primarily by the Canadian Institute of Health Research. EHN Canada is Canada's leading provider of mental health and addiction services, providing evidence-based and medically assisted care with 1-year wraparound services for those suffering from substance use disorders. To learn more, find their link in the show notes below. Métis Nation Saskatchewan has announced its pathway to the pursuit of self-government. As an MNS citizen, I am proud to see my government fight to protect my rights. This is our moment. To learn more about the treaty and our path to self-government, go to ourmoment.ca. Pine Lodge, the treatment center I went to 7 years ago when I got sober, offers inpatient addictions treatment and aftercare programming in Regina, Saskatchewan. To inquire about services or to make a donation, call 306-510-1891. Wellness News, Choice for Healthy Living, is a local resource that works to connect people to health and wellness-related products, services, and expert advice from industry professionals, locally allowing us to connect and engage. Check out wellnessnews.ca or saskwellnesshub.ca today to learn more. Are you affected by someone else's substance use? Family and friends can be okay and do recover. Naranon can help. Contact Ronnie at 306-731-7573 for meeting information. To make contact or to learn more about today's sponsors, to check out our merch, or if you want to show us some love and buy us a coffee, all those links are also in the show notes below. So we're at the point now where life's starting to get a little dark, by the sounds of things. When cocaine shows up and stays in your life, typically that's around the time where the party ends. Would you agree?
Cocaine now was, I'm making, $200,000 a year, $250,000 a year.
Wow.
In contracting,
Mm-hmm.
allowed me to, hey, let's go buy an 8-ball, go buy some cocaine. So, and then now weed wasn't a thing for us to do now. It was cocaine. And now, while we're contracting, it started becoming now we're going to work to do cocaine. I was my own boss.
Mm-hmm.
But doing it and having that opportunity to just buy as much as you want with sacrificing some bills later on, you didn't really give a shit about that. So, but now cocaine became crack cocaine. I was a steady snorter until this person that I'll show you what to do with it. You got some water and some, a spoon or whatever, you cook it. And then it made a little rock, right? It crackles when you smoke it. That's why it's called crack. So now that first high of the crack was the beginning of my demise in my life, the good life.
Mm-hmm.
Because I got so the word cooked and hooked.
Mm-hmm.
So now the addiction was full blown. I became a crackhead. And I lost my family, I lost my wife, I lost respect, I lost everything you can think of that makes you hit rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I hit rock bottom. I did things I wish I hadn't done. I'm paying the price. I'm still facing a charge today that I have to face, but there was that one dreadful October evening. I was at my dad's cabin, and I got everything ready at my dad's cabin and the porch there. I got the cord, the chair, and made up my mind. I'm going to do it. So I went back up to the porch. Everything was gone. The cord was gone. The chair was there, but the cord was gone. And I didn't know what to make of that. But I can tell you, it scared the shit out of me.
Mm-hmm.
I got the hell out of there as fast as I could. My hair in the back of my neck was up. I never ever went back to my dad's cabin since then. The addiction was so strong that I would do anything for the crack, anything to get it. I'll do anything. That suicide attempt, it made me realize a few things. Number one, you're scared shitless. Number two, when you're alone. You're alone. You feel so alone.
Mm-hmm.
You lost your family. You lost your wife. You lost the respect from everybody. And
so, hang on now. When you lost everything, like you lost your family, you lost your job, it sounds like you'd hit a rock bottom and you ended up trying to kill yourself. Were you angry at your family? Did you think that this was somehow their fault? Like, how dare they leave you? Don't they know what I'm going through? Was it like that? Or did you come to accept that you'd really messed up and that this was all your fault?
Yes, I learned. I never got angry at my family. This was all on me.
So you knew that even like when you were making these mistakes, even when you were doing these bad things, like you knew that you were doing bad?
Yeah, I would lie. I mean,
mm-hmm.
When you're on crack, you come up with the best lies.
Genius.
Man. I'd consider myself a genius in lying.
Yeah.
Because man, the stories I came up with are today when I think about them, I'm sorry, excuse my language.
That's okay.
I said to myself, holy shit, man, I sure know how to bullshit people, man. Like, and I wasn't a bullshit artist like that, but crack to get it. You'd do anything to get it.
So what was it then? Like, what was it? What was the pinnacle moment that said that told you that, like, did something speak to you? Did you have some sort of awakening? Did you get kicked in the head real hard? Like, what was it that finally snapped you into a new way of thinking?
I saw the hurt in my parents. I knew they wanted to help me, but the silent hurt I saw in my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And that my kids weren't talking to me anymore. That part was the defining moment when I spent my last check without paying rent to my parents for 2 consecutive checks, $2,000. And my dad asked me for rent, and I said, I don't have any more money, Dad. I saw him. My dad never got mad. He never saw him get mad. He knew what was going on. But that hurt I seen was the last moment I said to myself, that's it. this is it. I'm done.
Mm.
I phoned up Simone. She was a rehab worker in Crosse, and I said, can you get me into the treatment center tomorrow, anytime, really quick? I said, okay, I'll make some calls. February 26th was the last day I ever did crack in 2018 and 2019, sorry. And 2 days later, I got the call saying, Mike, there's room for you at MACSI in Saskatoon.
I'm interested now to know what it was like in your first year of recovery. What were some of the things that you came to realize? Like, particularly what I'm interested in is, when did you realize that you could live a life without crack?
At the treatment center,
Okay.
I had one heck of a counselor. What brought you here, Mike? She asked me. And I said, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I'm a crackhead. I said, I haven't, I want to quit crack. I said, so something's bothering you, Mike. I said, what is it? Why, what made you drink? When did you first start drinking? You know, the first questions you're asking me about my younger days. So I was telling her this story about, drinking and all that. And something I never told you, a part of my life there, she got it out of me. I had a daughter in 1988 in Larange. She wasn't a part of my life though, but this, as she turned 7, I got news that she drowned. So that was, that was in 88, and she got it out of me. What was, what was bothering you, without me knowing it. And that was the defining moment of my recovery. That was like probably the second week into MACSI. Mike, she said, I want you to do something. She said, so she goes, get a paper and pen and write down everything that you want to say to all the people you hurt, including your daughter. So she's take all the time you need. She said, so she gives me a paper and pen, and, an hour later, I was asking her for more paper because I wrote down about 20 some pages. And then, it helped me in my steps to recovery, because I got a lot out of my shoulders, my weight on my shoulders, by writing down everything I wanted to say to people without being able to tell them. And then, reading it back, and, it was like, kind of thing. So what she made me do is we went in the back of the MACSI there, and we got some smudge. And we burned it, except the letter I wrote to my daughter. She said, what I want you to do with that is one day make a check to SK-NEIHR, and you go and see your daughter and visit her, and you go and bury that with her. I said, so it took me another 2 years. It was so amazingly ironic that the day I chose to go visit my girl, the day I chose to go was the day that she had drowned, 25 years to that day. And I didn't realize it till I got to SK-NEIHR. And when I got there, I was sitting by the shore and never told nobody I was going. And when I got there, and to not find a ride across, because that the church is on a little island there in SK-NEIHR, so you need to catch a ride by boat. So I sat at the beach there, and I asked this guy, there's a family going out on the boat, if I can catch a ride to over there, I'll pay you. He said, so he offered me a ride. It'll only be 5 minutes. He said, I just want to go do something on my girl's grave. And she knew who I was talking about. He knew who I was talking about. It's been a long time, eh? He says, yeah. I said, but so he gives me a ride. I go across. The grass was so high, it was like a foot long. I couldn't find her. Couldn't find the grave, the headstone. But the funny thing was, this guy that gave me a ride, he says, I have to go now. He says, okay, we'll go back to the mainland. So we drove, got into the boat, went back to the mainland. This was a couple of years ago, after COVID. So when I got back to the shore, I waited my vehicle and I said, I'm not gonna go home. I'm gonna make sure I'm here. I'm that close. I want to go see him. I want to go bury this with my girl. So I sat there another hour or so. And then, my surprise, somebody knocked on my window, and here it was the uncle of my girl. Somebody was telling me there's a guy by the shore. He just sits there. He says, this guy knew right away. I bet you it's Mike, he said. So he comes there and he he put a tear in my eye.
Mm-hmm.
He he did something that I respected so much. He did everything he could to get the boat. There was no gas, so we put gas, and we went to my girls. He drove me there, and we still couldn't find my girl. Oh my God, we looked all over for like an hour, and he says we're not gonna leave anyway, so we'll find her. He said. So I was into like the smudging already and stuff, and my native spirituality, and I said the prayer to the Creator, and I said, Grandfather, I said, Wichahin, help me find my girl. I said, I'm not going to leave until I find her. And then I just looked down. The grass was tall. I moved the grass where my feet were. There she was. I was standing right on top of her. And it was amazing. So me and her uncle, his name is Bruce McKenzie, and we cleared all the grass. We pulled out all the grass around her gravesite, and now we can see her, and it was that headstone, the flat headstone. So I smudged, and we smudged together, and then I made a nice little hole, deep hole there, and I buried my letter. Now I felt like relieved to a point where I was like, it's like there's closure now. And it helped me become more like open about things, about talking about things. And so, when you say the defining moment, it was that talk with my counselor at MACSI in 2018 there.
Mm-hmm.
So I stayed there for 28 days. I experienced my first sweat lodge there. I went to Linklaters as part of the healing there. It was good programming at the time. So when I went back home after the 28 days, now you found out who your real friends were.
Mm-hmm.
So I still lived with my parents, and now being sobered, you can see it in them. They knew that I hit rock bottom. They knew when God helped, they knew our boy's back and our baby's back, because I'm the youngest in the family. And so they were happy.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up getting my own place, my own home.
In Crosse.
In Crosse. I got my own apartment. And then I got another chance at work in my sobriety. And I worked with youth now back home. The youth were a big part of me being, in my recovery, because I loved working with the youth and putting up activities, starting hockey, starting new programs, doing everything I can to keep them entertained. Then sadly, my dad passed away in August of 2022. And then my mom followed 6 months later, February 2023. And, it was last year, 15 months ago. And when my parents passed on, my mom, February, it was a sad part of our lives, my life too. I'm sure all my boys, because they were so close to my parents. And something was missing now. That June came. I was kind of thinking, already my mental health was deteriorating to a point where I said, man, I just feel like drinking.
Now you found recovery. Now you didn't really talk much yet about what you were doing to stay sober. You mentioned that you were going to, you started to work with youth, you got your job back, your parents were happy that you were back, but what were you doing? Like, what were you doing when you left treatment? Did you start like trying to go to meetings? Did you start trying to like participate more in culture? Like what kept you sober?
I got into native spirituality. When I first experienced a sweat lodge at MACSI, when I got home, there's a good friend of mine. He's a good friend. He was a very humble person. His name is Barry. He goes by the name of Manu. And he's a very respected person in my life, because he became a friend that to this day, I'm so glad to call him my friend, because, we went to the sweat lodge. And that's what kept me in my sobriety.
Did you still want to get loaded at this time?
No.
Because like for me, like when I got into recovery, it got so bad that I didn't even want it anymore. I didn't want it. But I mean, there was resentment in my life. I was so angry over some of the things that happened, and we don't need to go into that because all my viewers have heard it to death. What was it then? Like when you like, oh, I got to go to a sweat. What was it that was driving you to that?
It wasn't having the need to go to a sweat.
Yeah.
It was that wanting to
Yeah.
go to a sweat that was part of your new culture, your new sobriety journey, your new sober journey.
Mhm.
Saying, you know what, man, the sweat lodge feels so good. It was my safe place. It was, I want to go to sweat again tomorrow, and then the next day as well. Native spirituality played a big part to this day, and is still to this day a big part of my sober journey. You know, praying to the Creator, smudging, like you did. Thank you for that, by the way. In my journey, I had to get away from the negative energy, the negative toxic energy, the toxic atmosphere.
Well, and we were talking about that before. Now, when I went to Crosse, it was a very different experience for me. And who's to say if I would stay there for 6 months, maybe that wouldn't be this case. But do you think that maybe that was a part of the life that you had built in Crosse? Do you think that that was part of the relationships that you had built that led you to feel that toxicity and to be around it?
There are things I done that, you know, I wish I hadn't did, but there was things I'm doing now today that I can help people with, that I can say I can help these youth out, but they don't want my help. No, the guy that I was talking about, Manu, he's the one that says, Kiam, Mike, Kiam. That means it's okay. Let's let it go. That doesn't bother you. Don't let it bother you. Keep moving forward. You can't fix what's behind. You can't fix what's done. You can't undo what's done. You can't unsay what was said. You just keep moving forward. I learned to accept that. I learned to deal with that. I learned how to be humble about that. So when I made that move to Saskatoon, that was the best move of my life. I mean, my mental health just went from 0 degrees to plus 180 in terms of turning it around. It was the best thing I needed. It was something I needed. And Saskatoon has been such a beautiful city for me. You know, I can tell you, coming to Saskatoon in my younger days, I wanted to get the hell out of here after 3 days. I want to go home because I was homesick. I was a northern boy. But now, like this whole year of living with my youngest son, it's made me and made us a little stronger in terms of respect now. The riverbank walks, the going to the gym every day at the Shaw, just having all kinds of opportunities now has opened the door. Opportunities we don't have back home because, you know, there's nothing going on back up there. Nobody's putting up things. You know, I moved back home. When I was there, I was a lot of things were going on. There was a lot of things going on in terms of sports. Today, there's hardly anything going on in terms of sports, but there is a lot of healing programs going on. There's a lot of cultural programming going on, but there's just no sports going on. And that's the thing that I think leadership forgets. You need sports in your life. You know, without recreation, a community dies. And I still believe in that. And, you know, I want that to be a part of, you know, it's election year. And, you know, if there's leaders out there listening, get back to the recreation, get back to sports, get back these youth into sports. And that's what kept me and the good life, you know, me, Pumatsu, and growing up in the good years of the 80s, it was playing sports. And it made us good people, made us good people, good drugs effed everything up. Today, drugs is the number one problem still in the North. Crystal meth, I think, is taking over. And that's a big issue. Nobody's doing nothing about it. Maybe they are, but haven't seen it. There's still, you know, what you saw when you went over there is the good life, the good thing about Crosse, the good parts, the sober parts of life. You know, go take a drive at 11 p.m. You'll know what I'm talking about in terms of what kind of problem there is in terms of drugs. So, you know, if we're, you know, getting close probably to our end of our podcast here, but, you know, I am happy to say that I'm loving this life of being sobered. It's been over 2,000 days, 2003. I'm not counting my phone. There's an app.
It's 2003 days, but who's counting?
I got reminded it was 2000 on my app, and this thing came up. Hey, Mike, an achievement. Boom, it's 2,000 days. Holy shit, that's right. So, but yeah, when I got accepted into a SIT, mental health and wellness, my year one was, I started in September of last year in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
This was, something I never thought I could do as a 57-year-old at the time last year. I said, why not? Let's try it. Man, I love this so much, learning. Every day, I always look forward to school every day because it's a learning opportunity to learn something new today and keeping busy.
Mm-hmm.
And, like the real unique part of me going to school is my son teaches 2 of my classes, my youngest son.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
So it's not that, look, his son's teaching him. No, that must be freaking unique for his son to be instructed. He teaches 2 classes out of the 6, so the other 4 another instructor has.
Mm-hmm.
But there's that thing that's in the back of my mind that I have to deal with still. Before the courts, I let that try not to bother me because I was told, if you don't have control of things, let it go. Whatever you don't have control of, let that play itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned to deal with that, learn it like that. So I try not to let it bother me. Of course, there's a lot of sleepless nights. Like I'll be lying. I'd be lying if I said that wasn't a part of the problem, because it is. But you'll go on your day-to-day stuff. I played ball with my kids this weekend. The first time ever in my life I got to play with my boys playing slow pitch, and we won the consolation today. That's why I'm just ready here, and my glasses are still on here.
Yeah.
But that was the fun part of the sober journey.
Like I know that when you take those SIIT courses, that the first year is about self-reflection. It's about getting your own stuff sorted out, and then the second year is about helping others. What can you tell us about what you've learned about yourself in the past year that has really helped you turn these pages?
So when I write my reflective papers about my own personal life, about my own personal journey, my own personal traumas, my hurts, my girl, my boys, my partners, my drinking, my violence, all that, I get to write it. And that's when you learn a lot about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You just reflecting back on your life and being able to write it down is probably the most fun thing I'm having right now in that class. Well, it's done. I'm done my year one. Actually, I had the third highest GPA, or GPA in my class. I had an 83, something like that.
Wow.
So I can say, yeah, I know how to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to year 2
Mm-hmm.
coming up, and barring God willing, that I can finish it, and one day go back home, work with our youth.
What would you like to leave us with tonight?
Don't give up. Don't throw the towel in. Ask for help. Ask for help. I mean, don't be afraid to ask for help. Just go out there and accept what you've done, who you are. And there's one word, it's easy to say but hard to do it: change. That's something I always try to say to somebody: change it up, change it.
Mm-hmm.
If you love drinking and if it's always getting you in trouble, what are you going to do? Are you going to keep drinking? You love trouble? No, I don't love trouble, but you love drinking?
Mm-hmm.
Well, something, you got to change something, man. Change it up. Fight through it.
Okay. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. It's been a bit of a journey this evening.
Hey, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me. And thank you to all those people out here again. Brandon, my son, Brandon, all those people on your healing journeys. Keep going. I love you guys, man.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mike. Okay, if you got something out of that, please hit that like button at the bottom of the screen. If you're not yet subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. We go live twice a week. We've got 300 episodes for you to catch up on, so we got a pile of stuff to listen to. You can find us on right here on YouTube or on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. That's all I got for you tonight, everyone. Thanks so much. Take care.
Say, this is Hard Knocks Talks.